We're going to ask District Attorney Bragg as we get going to tell us a little bit about his background. I'll only say, he won't remember this, but the first time I met him, and Charlene and I met him, and some others of you, we were up in a garden on 134th Street, Frank and Naomi's garden up there. And you were sitting on a bench all by yourself, like, you know, and that to me said, and then it came out, that he was running for district attorney and had quite a storied background and whole bunch of experience, but you would never have known it from the unassuming person who was sitting quietly on a bench. So having embarrassed him that much, I'm going to invite him to come forward and have a seat. And once again, be welcomed here in this house of God. Is that all right? So I do want to start by inviting you to tell us a bit about your background and how you ended up doing what you're doing in the career path that you've chosen or has been chosen for you.
Sure. Well. Thank you for having me today. It's great to be here. I do like a good park bench, particularly on a day like today. So I was just remarking that I've basically been in this neighborhood my whole life, but I've never been here. So it's a real blessing to be here. I am a lifelong Manhattanite, schooled on the Upper West Side, raised in Harlem, and just had very early experiences with public safety on the one hand, and with police accountability on the other. So kind of 6 early kind of gunpoint incidents, I would call them, 3 stops by the police, and then 3 more traditional, public safety challenges involving guns. And that got me really interested in sort of our safety, our accountability to one another. And, some of this is stitched together post hoc. When I was 16, I might not have been thinking as actively about it, but, went to college very much with that puzzle and then became a lawyer. Initially kind of focused on civil rights law, and then since 2003, I've pretty much been in the government on the enforcement side, doing some civil rights and then some prosecution.
It seems to me, D.A. Bragg, as we were thinking about your career, that you've spent your whole career on in an area that really relies on the courts, really relies on the judiciary, and it's poignant at this time of when I know many of us feel that we're looking to the courts, to our ages-old system of justice to hold the line and to help us to remain a place where law matters, where the judicial system matters. And I wonder if you would say a little bit about that and how you find yourself at this moment of time.
So my first job out of law school was a clerkship for a phenomenal federal judge here in District Court in Manhattan named Robert P. Patterson Jr., maybe familiar to some, his father, who was an appellate judge and Secretary of War for a little bit. And he, when I think of a judge, he's judicious, but the sort of humanity he brought to the bench, I remember those. It was a 1-year sort of fellowship, and in particular, I remember there was just to sort of depict the power that the judge has singularly in a courtroom. There was someone who was brought out before him, a defendant, and he was clearly in distress, it was not cold in the room, but he was shaking as if he were very cold, and everyone else just sort of went about their functions. I remember the judge turned to me and he said, go get him a jacket, which is very much not the judge's job. But the judge's job is what the judge decides the job is. And so I went and got him a jacket. He put it on him. And I just, to me, I think one of the sort of humanity in that, which he brought to that role and which he taught me, and he taught all of his clerks. He's now passed away, but we all still get together. The singularity of the judge in the courtroom, right? It is his courtroom. And that's sort of in the human dimension, but also sort of in the articulation of the law, applying the law to the facts. And our system is built on that, right? Going before the court, relying on facts and making arguments, and then the judge ruling in a nonpartisan, non-political way. Doesn't have to be divorced from humanity, which is why I give that sort of example up front. But it does have to be rooted in reason and rooted in the law. And he was a district court judge, so there was the ability to appeal and then appeal that to the Supreme Court. And that's the foundation of our work. And people ignoring court orders is very, very scary, particularly sort of, when you see it every day. Something I have a great pride in is, while there's certainly some volatility in the federal system now, is we are still, and some of you may have gotten a summons notice in the last month, we're still impaneling juries and having cases go as they normally would, which doesn't seem extraordinary or remarkable or revolutionary, but I would say I think we have our chest stuck out a little bit at this moment, and there's a sort of a pride in the system's working, and it working the way the framers intended to, which is, I'm not suggesting the system is perfect, but it is our system, and sort of, coloring within the lines of it is important. So we see it every day. We see it generally working in our system, and it's very scary to see it, particularly, I would say, judges being called out for, impeachment or for worse, veiled threats of violence. We see this. We've had a couple of cases recently where our prosecutors have been threatened online. It is not the way the marketplace of ideas is supposed to work, and I think, extrapolated out, is really, really a threat to the system.
Yeah. Well, and the system, as we've seen, it works when people make it work, when people are committed to the system and work together to make it work. So thank you for that. I noticed with a smile that one of your bios and your Wikipedia page talk about you teaching Sunday school up at Abbott City, and I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that, and what role your faith might play in your work and your life. We're here at church.
Well, I'm smiling because we had a good class today, which, for anyone who's ever taught, sometimes you have a good lesson plan and, this doesn't go the way you thought. Sometimes you go in a little underprepared and it's like magic. So, I was actually with, I'm forgetting the name of the conference. I think it was the American Baptist Conference. Yesterday morning they had a rally, Union Baptist Church, 145th Street, and I did not yet have my lesson. I'm a Saturday night lesson planner, and their theme was on the power of the light and moral courage in dark times, and using the plague of darkness from Exodus. And so I'm a lay person. I told the minister, you just gave me my lesson for tomorrow. So we went in and we talked about what is light, and the charge. I like to give them an action item for the week. It's what are you going to do this week to make your light shine? Yeah. And so, and then I answer the question myself too, right? And so it is I've been teaching Sunday school for, I guess, more than 20 years now in the same, space that I took Sunday school. So for me, it's sort of paying forward the lessons, or supposed to be paying forward the lessons I learned. I find that more often than not, I'm still learning more lessons.
What grade? What grades are?
So I have high school.
Oh my God.
I used to have 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah.
And then when my daughter hit 7th grade, we made a little deal. Well, I say we made a deal. I was told. I was reassigned. And then COVID came to high school. But it's for me, it's great. I mean, I see I was sitting in the room across from what looked like your Sunday school.
Yeah.
The high school has its own challenges, but I will say that I'm always amazed by the nursery. I mean, the folks who are teaching the 3-year-olds and 4. It's just amazing. So I think I saw some of that.
Yeah, can we give a shout out and a round of applause to the folks around here who take our children in hand and love them and nourish them and teach them? One thing we're very grateful for around here is that for the last year and a half, maybe more, you have sent some amazing people.
Woo-hoo!
You guys, can you stand up? Your staffers from the DA's office. Come on. That's not standing up. That's sitting down. Okay.
You're supposed to follow directives from clergy.
Yeah. You don't know that? You didn't get that memo. Okay, fine. Anyway, we love you because, and we see the work that you do. You said once that it was important to send folks to places like this if we want to engage in what situations they're facing, especially as the legal system is concerned. I think our congregation, we're well aware that immigrants and new arrivals are far more likely to be victims of crime than perpetrators, whatever we hear, whatever other messages. Anyway, I remember you saying that, they may not come to my office, meaning your office. They'd be maybe more likely to come to a place where they know they're safe and secure and looked after and loved. Can you say a little bit about your office's work with immigrants, asylum seekers, and on issues, wage theft and fraudulent attorneys or whatever work? We could ask them.
They didn't stand up for you. They won't. They're not going to answer for me.
Yeah, no, they're okay.
But I will say before I talk about our work, how inspiring this church's work is. It is so true. I mean, we try to do our part as an office, but everyone has a lane and a role, and it would not be natural for people to come to our office for certain things. So to be able to, one, be inspired by what you're doing and the consistency of it and the depth of it, and to be a part of it in a small way is very meaningful. And I do want to salute the folks who've worked on it because they've got a lot of discretion in how they interact with the community, and that's great because they're great at their jobs, but you can tell it's sort of a labor of love. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I said, yes, it'd be great if you do it, but it is in many ways self-directed and coming from a place of really personal commitment, which I'm humbled to sort of lead the office and say, yeah, the office is a part of that, but it's really driven by the phenomenal folks in the office who are doing that work. So I would say, first of all, we're just so honored to be a small piece of that, and we realize how important, I just sort of look around this space, right? Someone's going to need help is going to come here first. And then we talk about New Yorkers, but it's across the board. It's someone who's hungry is going to come to a church food pantry. Someone who's coming back from jail or prison is going to find the reentry ministry when no one else, right? The doors of the church are open when all the doors are closed. So we're just humbled to be a part of it. I'll now talk about what we do, which is cases, which seems, we think it's important. We think it's important. It's a piece of the puzzle, but it's sort of, in some ways not as important as like keeping those doors open and someone coming and getting what they need immediately. Our work, I would say, falls into a few categories. We have immigrant affairs. We have our analysts here. Something that I've seen in sort of my career over and over again, whenever there's distress, whenever there's volatility, the people who do fraud seize on it, right? And so we've seen an uptick in, you want to become a citizen? Give me $5,000 and I'll make that happen for you. Right? That's not a thing, but if you are desperate and you don't have any money and you will go to everyone you can, I can't get $5,000, but I can get you $1,500. I'll get you a special rebate on that. I'll do that. We see those. We see an uptick in that. And even before kind of this moment now, the overlap between, I started a tenant protection unit and then we sort of expanded our wage theft. And that affects all New Yorkers. I mean, housing instability is affecting all of us, and there are a lot of folks who are being paid a criminally low wage, but it really, really affects the most vulnerable, right? The people who are perpetrating these frauds, like they train their sites like a laser. And so we've had a couple of cases, and one thing we've started to do is the office has traditionally done these very big kind of construction fraud cases, which are very important, and they have high dollar amounts. We've now started to expand into retail, and the numbers are smaller, but I think they're just as important. So we have a case of someone who, a day laborer, worked an honest day, went to collect his wages. His employer assaulted him. And said, I'm going to call ICE on you. We have another one of someone again who was doing manual labor, was locked in his workspace. When he was finally able to extricate himself, the employer, in all the arrogance you could muster, said to him, "Well, what are you going to do? I got great lawyers, right?" And not realizing that we're not his lawyers, we're lawyers for the people of the state of New York, but that we got a pretty good team too.
Yeah.
And I think the real importance in sort of mentioning it here is that as you touch people and see people, to let them know that we're here and doing that kind of work, because this is a real moment where an understandable reluctance to come forward to government. In a past job, when I worked at the New York State Attorney General's office, a somewhat similar moment to this of about 4 years ago, and we had finished a wage theft case, and these were workers who, we all deserve and should get what we work for, but these were workers that really saying check to check doesn't capture it. And the only thing left to do in the case was to return the money. Everything else was done. And we said, okay, well, yeah, tell them to come on in, and the front door says Attorney General of the State of New York. That Attorney General part for them, Attorney General of the State of New York, Attorney General of the United States, we're not going to deal with keep the money. They said keep the money. We don't want the money. We don't want to show up. So we ended up doing it off-site somewhere else. But that just the depth of concern about coming to us. So. Having trusted people to say, well, no, it's okay. We'll meet you wherever you want to be met, or we'll talk to you wherever you want to talk. We'll talk to one of our other offices. We'll talk to you. I once prepared a witness in a Pizza Hut. We will go wherever justice requires. But having about the work and let people know who need that is so critical. I think, particularly now.
Good, thank you. I have another question or two, and then I think we'd like to open it up to see if other folks have a question. But one question that comes to mind is how your office interacts with federal immigration authorities and so forth. And anything you can tell us about that, what you've been talking about, what you've been doing.
Yeah, look, we do local criminal enforcement. We do not do federal civil immigration. And the office has a very strong tradition in that we've been trying to remind people of. And I like to talk about it let's look from a public safety perspective for a moment, for those, that may resonate with from that perspective. Maybe there are other places in this country where you could, but here, if something happens, we'll use this sort of, I think every New Yorker's nightmare, something on the train platform, someone is assaulted. Imagine if we stopped to say, well, wait a second, I want to ask these 3 questions about you before you tell me what you saw. Where you're from, what are your pay? It just wouldn't work. So on top of all the issues that you are doing, that come from Matthew, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, right? And on top of all of those, there's really a fundamental public safety issue here that we can't do our jobs, right? We can't do our jobs of holding people accountable, deterring crime, helping safety, if we were to be, asking people those type of questions. So we don't. we don't do that unless required, absolutely, by law. But yeah, and that's a message we've been really trying to let people know, because we have, I use the train example, but we've got other examples where people are themselves, they are harmed themselves, and then they say, well, can I go to? Well, yeah, we want you to. That you were harmed, so yes, we have, and I should say this, we have folks thinks about the lawyers. We have great folks in other capacities. Our community partnership folks, our Survivor Services Bureau of advocates and counselors who are available to provide support and counseling free of charge, without regard to whether someone wants to go forward for a case. They may have been harmed, may decide that they don't, for whatever reason, don't want to be a witness, don't want to, participate in the system, but want support. And we're there to provide support regardless of, there's no payment. They may decide to participate in the case, and it may be 5 years down the road, and they're still being supported. So that's available to everyone, and we want everyone to know that.
Yeah. Speaking of Law and Order, do you have an actor in mind that you would like to have play you on Law and Order in the future?
I mean,
that question was not authorized.
I mean, as we sit in this great place of worship, I want to be humble. I don't want to shoot too high. I mean, it would seem immodest to say something like Michael B. Jordan or something like that. I'll go with that for the moment. But if the producer comes back and says that's not lifelike enough, we'll go back to the drawing board.
I'd like to ask one more question, and then maybe we should wrap it up and let you get on with your day. But I serve on a community board, and we always get interesting people showing up. You don't get the people who are just so happy with how things are going in the neighborhood. But one thing we hear a lot about is crime, and then we, and certainly reading the papers, turning on the radio, turning on the TV. Yeah, there's certain things that really stand out and are shocking and everything, and yet then we look at statistics, and that's a different story. And I wonder how you parse what's going on, our current situation, just on the basic level of crime. Yeah.
You're so right on the statistics, right? So, Manhattan has had, the last 2 years, 10% reductions on sort of the index crimes, the bundle of crimes that the NYPD measures for safety. And so, that's the trend line is going great. We're like 10% to be 40%, yes, but it's going in the right direction. And in some categories, I think during my 3 years and change in office, homicides are down 20%, shootings are down 45%. And so we've made some real strides. But at the same time, we have so much more work to do, right? And I think the things that sort of affect everyday New Yorkers, particularly in communities that don't historically have a high shooting rate or a high homicide rate, you go to those communities and they don't need the statistics. They can tell you. They tell me when I first arrived. But the other things, the people who are in clear distress, suffering from mental health episodes, and how that makes people feel unsafe. We're doing things in the office to intervene and try to provide them stability, which helps the person in distress and also helps others feel safe. We've done a lot on that. I would say if I had to pinpoint one thing, that when I hear people, and the community boards are such an interesting place, you can talk for the first 3 minutes about what's going right, and then the last, however much time about, and we try to sort of lean into that and say, like, here's what we're doing. So we've had a procurement with a group called The Bridge, a $6 million procurement. They are, when everyone else understandably is crossing the street away from someone who's talking to himself with no shirt on in 30-degree weather, they're crossing the street to that person with hygiene kits and food and compassion and how can I help, and we're measuring that. And it's incremental, it's day by day, it's building rapport, but it's working. We started a similar program in August with Fortune Society, right in our courtrooms. And someone leaves, they make bail, or they're released on their own recognizance, and they say, how can I help you? And sometimes that's food, sometimes it's hygiene. Sometimes, and this is where I think it can be really transformative, they take them straight from our courthouse to transitional housing. This helps the person, and then it also helps all of us in our safety, because we know just from different data that we're probably not going to see that person again until something else happens, another crime. And so that intervention point right in the courtroom, and say, what's to your role here, right? Is I don't work for the district attorney's office. I work at a social service organization, and we help with reentry, we help with food, we help with housing. What do you need today, right? That, if I sit in the back of the courtroom and I said that just doesn't work. But someone from Fortune who's had the lived experience does that. And so we're measuring that in the metrics. So I would say, when I go to the community board meetings, they're right. I mean, we've made significant strides, and we want to be happy about that. But we have a lot of work to do, and I want them and you to know what we are doing, and we're measuring it, and that which works, we're going to double down on it, and that which isn't working, we're going to stop it, and we're going to put our heads together and talk to you and talk to others and figure out what we could be doing differently.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, there's a lot more things we could ask and say, and maybe if you're hanging around for a couple of minutes afterwards, then please feel free to come, one-on-one and chat. But is it okay before we let you go if we pray for you?
Oh, does anyone ever say no to that?
Yeah, well, my son Harry, but all right. Dear God, we're so grateful for all the public servants that have answered the call to bring sanity, a little bit of love, a lot of justice to this world that sometimes seems so scary, and it seems to be getting scarier and less certain as we go on. And so we just want to lift up your servant, Alvin, in all the facets of his life. And we pray your protection over him. And we pray that he will continue to know that he is deeply appreciated and supported by us and by so many residents of the county of New York. So, God, in your mercy, hear this prayer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
All right.